Desbossier, the director of IRS, ladies and gentlemen, partners, and especially those who have drafted the program of this day, the doctors, different specialists, our partner associations, ladies and gentlemen, be welcome. Robert Gordier, our chairman, where is he? No, he is this. He's talking in the middle of the room. So, Mr. Cordier asked me to sponsor this Congress because the only département in France has done this, and I think that we should be grateful for this because they wanted to have at the head of the Departmental Council for Autonomy and Citizenship disabilities, the elderly, someone who's not part of the executive power. So I think this is a very good thing. So, Madam Chairman, I think that this is your work. The consequences of the stroke that I had a few months ago had slowed down my usual work, but I could take part in the preparatory meetings to this conference. And Robert Cordier really helped me, and I admire him for leading this for a year with all our partners. The town hall of Nancy, they are a stakeholder in this conference, and they will host us at the town hall tonight. But also the many doctors and specialists who are here with us for this conference. He has shown a lot of energy, and I think we can thank him for this. So I'm very grateful for this. So I'm also grateful to the département because they supported us from the start. The town hall of Nancy supporting the IRS and with all the usual partners. As soon as a topic affects or is linked to disabilities, so you have the different physicians, but specialists also. So this conference room is our main ally. There's always a big ally in conferences is the good weather. We have good weather today, so that's a good thing. And the second ally we have is the Palais des Congrès, this conference hall, and we have Béatrice Cuif-Mathieu, who is the director of this Congress Hall, and she was very careful about all our needs. So this was very positive. So my introduction will be a bit of history. It is in Nancy that the fight against polio started. This is worth recalling, and this is, in a way, going back to the origins for this European conference in Nancy. Do we still remember the terrible polio pandemic that has affected the Meurthe-et-Moselle district, but also the east of France in 1956-57? So that was half a century ago, but I think that we can still remember it. And if I wanted to mention these events, it's to explain why we have chosen Nancy, and especially to recall our vulnerability, collective vulnerability, and individual vulnerability when confronted with such events. If at the end of the 20th century we were not ready or prepared for this, we might wonder whether we are better prepared now when you remember what happened 2 years ago, the COVID pandemic in 2020. So the memory of this kind of event dies out quite quickly, and it prevents the consideration of what we have to keep in mind socially and medically speaking. So during the pandemic of 56, 57, most of the people affected were children. Children who were younger than 14 years old with debilitating aspects. 781 patients were sent to the infectious diseases ward in the Maringer Hospital in Nancy, where they have been hosted and where vaccination could be done. So for some, death was unavoidable, but for others who were severely affected, there was complete disability or partial disability paralysis, some respiratory diseases, and at the end of 1957, we had to worry about the future of those children, young adults in convalescence for whom rehabilitation was mandatory to fight the functional disabilities to limit the aftermath of this disease. And the Hygiène Sociale office that proposed to transfer the preventorium in Flavigny in not far from here. They were less focused on tuberculosis, and the new epidemic was coming back until 1962 in the neighboring districts in the Aube and the Ardennes, who have sent their patients to the Nancy hospitals and to Flavigny-sur-Moselle. So the status of some young patients did not allow them to leave the hospital. So, for example, the Nancy inhabitants do remember, for some of them, Fernand Neo was hospitalized at 7 years old. He spent 50 years at the hospital. We forgot this. Some of you maybe remember he was heavily disabled. He lost the usage of his hands, and he was passionate about IT. He had passed his certificate for accounting. He had organized the Christmas campaigns of a local newspaper in favor of polio-affected young patients. I met him when someone had to take him to the Marcel Picot Stadium, where the team at the time, the football team, was a very successful team, and they were winning matches. So we'll come back. So Nancy also did great things, launched the medical train for the annual pilgrimage in Lourdes. They needed respiratory devices, some oxygen bottles, so it was a real victory. And the UCCF was a bit reluctant, as usual. The non-posthumous, they said, we cannot. So the Paris directorate first said, no, we cannot organize this. This is too complicated, and we have some safety rules. But Dr. Catnose asked the Paris managers to visit the polio hospital, and after the visit, their decision was immediate. They said, you will have this train and this medical train. And he said that the least we can do for the patients. So we have to remember those sentences. And on the 28th of September 1963, you can see that only a few years after the peak of the epidemic, the first train of hope left with 157 polio patients on board. So with stretchers, doctors, 100 of people accompanying them and carers. So if I mention this event, it's because we managed to transport over a long distance people who were heavily disabled, and this never stopped this year. From the 7th to the 12th of July, with Dominique Méry, the chairman, there will be a high-speed train leaving from Nancy. It happened some time ago, but it requires some adjustments. So today's conference, our European conference, gives us the opportunity to cover many medical progresses, scientific progresses, but also technological progress that will make the daily life of polio patients easier in France, in Europe, and this will allow to measure how far we went since the first disability law in 2005. The National Council of Disabled People that I was chairing at the time took an active part in this achievement. But we can also see how far we have to go given the progress that I think are insufficient, and I think everybody will agree with me. We still have a long way to go, and especially in terms of access. And the latest Disability Council meeting in April, I had to attend this in video conference. So if it means one thing, is that the progress is insufficient in terms of access. Now, the translation into actions are insufficient, and it's similar for the general state of mind, which is not at the right level yet, because it is usually focused on the inabilities of individuals, people who are disabled, and very often they forget about the assets, the contribution of disabled people to the economy, to daily life, and more broadly also, I would say, one underestimates the contribution to the life in common, in society, which is essential. So why is it? I will give you just an example that Julien Perrault, disabled worker, top-level worker, he did a thesis, biomolecular thesis on plasma in 2005. He has a doctorate in physical plasmas, working in the CNRS, which is the National Research Institute. After 15 years, he still has no stable job. So that's what I'm saying. Despite interventions at the highest level, and when I say highest level, but you know the highest level in those cases is worthless. If there is no general willingness to make progress, then we still face some obstacles. Now I would like to conclude by saying that our commitment to disabled people is to make them fully fledged citizens, and we're far from that. And the fight that you are doing, in spite of all the actions of your associations, and the Polio Association is a beautiful example of it. The richness, the content of our conference is a testimony of this. Nothing is a given, and we have to keep fighting. This is a very important fight, a fight for rebuilding the democratic pact, so that makes disabled people witnesses, guardians of a more friendly society. Thank you very much.